good. It's a lot of fun to be asked to come to OGRAIN conference, and we all come with our expectations, and after listening to great presentations over here, we can expect great things this year, but still like Ole and Lena, they're the Farm Cup of Minnesota, and so Ole raised the expectations. He said, Lena, for Christmas this year, he said, we're going to have a real tree. Oh, Lena was so excited. So off to the woods they go, you know. They didn't expect the snow to be that deep, and the snow is very deep. And they walked a long time, and the wind started to blow, and it got cold. And they looked, and they just couldn't find the tree that met their expectations. And after a while said, Ole said, well, it said, Lena, the next tree we see, we're going to take it, even if it doesn't have lights. So you all have to have our expectations over here. So now I'm going to expect to figure out how to do this thing. I just touch the screen and which way to do it. Oh, very good. Okay, real good. I farmed organically for about 20 years, and our crop rotation over that period of time was corn, beans, small grains, and pasture. I would say that back when my dad was farmed his entire life, that same ground that he dealt with was quackgrass and Canada thistle. And I remember him starting to use 2,4-D and then atrazine and oil, and split applied atrazine and oil. And then over all these years, we were expecting that chemicals were going to take care of quackgrass and Canada thistle, and we knew it would, and they never really did. They just suppressed those perennials, but annuals being a different story. And when I transitioned to organic, I was really concerned about those, and they persisted, and I would consider them, I like that, what he said, you keep those records, though, what your really worst weed problems were. And quack and Canada thistle was right on the top of my pick. About 6 years ago, an elderly farmer told me, he said, you used the wrong tools to suppress perennials, and I've got the exact same field cultivator that Dave has over there, and what I do in the spring is I go after the perennials on warm, sunny days, and now I have very little fear of quackgrass and Canada thistle. I know I can suppress them. I don't eliminate them, but I suppress them, and that's done a good job. So the annual weeds I'm getting along with okay, and the perennial weeds with that get along well, but that was all of our crops then were spring seeded, but there's no spring seeded annual that competes with giant ragweed. Our past rotation placed too much emphasis on spring tillage, especially with the beef cow herd that would spring calf and have overwinter the stock cows on the sod ground out in the field. That was the way it was done. We did not have an opportunity because of that cropping system to do much during the summertime, so there was no opportunity to seed and make and fix and cover crop. There's too many months of poor soil cover, and our ability to grow small grains and harvest bedding crops is becoming almost impossible. Giant ragweed, I think if you talk to my chemical neighbors, they said was going to drive me out of the organic business, and 6 years ago it didn't look very good, I'll be honest with you. So ragweed became the exception, and it was evolving very well, and that was really interesting what Adam had to say about the evolution of that weed in organic agriculture, because I really was developing a population that liked exactly what I was doing, and all I could do after a while was chop it and stick in a bag for cattle feed. It was a heck of a problem. And so this is an example of what I'm doing. I'm windrowing it over here, but I showed you that field was planted small grains with no chance of a harvest of small grains whatsoever, and we were run out of bedding, and it was becoming a real heck of a problem. So now we have a new crop rotation, and it's a 6-year rotation using a crop that was developed in Eastern Europe. And the 6-year rotation now is coming full cycle in our farm. But we're using a winter annual hybrid rye grain crop. And this 6-year rotation, if we go back and take a look at those 72 months that 6-year rotation covers, we now have the ground covered about 90% of the time. We also have an economic use for our winter annual grain crop. And this rotation allows us an open window in the summertime to plant a winter-killing, nitrogen-fixing cover crop, pristine organic corn. So our 6-year rotation has really changed our farm. And this has been looked at very carefully by the NRCS because we applied for a cost share, an equipped cost share on a manure storage system on our farm that was pretty expensive. And we had to compete based on how well we actually are doing what we say we're doing in regards to soil and taking care of the soil. And the new fixture rotation, when it was analyzed by the NRCS people, came back and they put us right on the top of the pit, and our manure stack pad got funded because we are covering the ground and we are building soil aggregate structure and reducing erosion, even though we do disruptive tillage in the 6-year cycle. So our new rotation is hybrid rye, and this is not a cover crop rye, this is a grain crop rye, planted in September on manured and moldboard plowed pasture. So here I am plowing, yeah, I am taking pasture ground that's scheduled to grow into row crops. But I historically would have done that heavy tillage in April, and that's one of the biggest mistakes I've made organically farming for many, many years. We shifted now to fall calving. We overwinter the stock cows at home because we don't have those pastures to overwinter the cows on over the winter. But our disruptive tillage is done in September very deliberately. So actually what I do is I'll viscosod, put on close to 15 ton of manure, moldboard plow that down, and then right away we're planting hybrid rye on that plowed sod. By the 1st of October, our ground is grass green. It's covered with the rye crop, which follows through the entire season. So then the ground is covered through the spring, covered through the summer. The rye crop is harvested in July, and then either we have frost-seeded red clover or we have a summer-seeded cover crop planted on that ground because we have this cropping window open up now. The next year is planted to corn, the next year is planted to soybeans, and then small grains, and then a full year of hay and a full year of pasture. So that's a 6-year sequence. So I have no-tilled hybrid rye and a Japanese millet stubble. I've also planted hybrid rye conventional tillage into moldboard plowed stubble, but I'm right now on the conventional tillage the way I like to do it because I'm getting my manure incorporated, and I don't always plant Japanese millet. All right, this is a picture taken in May of 2017. The rye is well into heading and about full growth. Hybrid rye is not as tall as open pollinated rye, and this crop was developed in Europe after a breeding program where they are able to isolate male and female lines. The crop has about twice the grain yield of an open pollinated rye and a very tough straw. So it stands very well. Also notice on the left-hand side, maybe in this room got a better population of giant ragweed than that. That is not a cover crop. Notice that is pure ragweed. So it shows you the ragweed pressure we're dealing with over there. I left to strip this field deliberately unplanted. And at this time, it's the first year I grow, and that shows rye's planting in September ability to suppress so well an intensely heavy pressure of giant ragweed. So now you're going to say, what happens as the season progresses? And so much of this worked out really well with what the first speaker said about an integrated approach. So the rag was totally suppressed, and the rye made its crop. But now 3 years ago, I've watched this. As the rye becomes mature, it must lose its protection, and the rag will germinate, and it comes up. But, I think that's just fine, because I'm going to go back with my next hammer. In this situation, if I go to a summer cover crop, I will kill the ragweed then after that flush of seeds came up. It has no chance of making a seed head. Or I cross-seed red clover, and that is another way I don't know which way we're going with this. Either one seems to work very well. But where I cross-seeded red clover, we had almost total suppression of the giant ragweed all the way through the fall. So it is an effect from a fall planted winter annual that suppresses what I would call an evolutionary monster over there of giant rag. So the fall planted rye prevents other weeds from emerging as well. The first year we windrowed the crop, that was a mistake, but that sounds fine. This is what our first crop looked like at harvest. Then the conventional combine, we have two different combines that we've had. This is a guy that actually does the customer farming, and we actually try to rotary on as well. But we need the straw on the farm, so the straw yield is very important. Rye straw is not as good as wheat and barley straw, but it's better than no straw, and the straw yield has been excellent. But now, starting in 2018, we direct harvest the crop. So what I like about this is we plant in September, and the next thing I do is combine in July. And when I'm done combining in July, if it's underseeded with red clover, we did clip some of the red clover last year if we had any weeds come above it. But if we didn't do that, then we seeded the cover crop, and that cover crop fed my cow herd this fall for 30 days, and we strip grazed that, and I weaned the calves in December, and I mentioned that because that cover crop had to be very good feed, or we would not be able to take the calf crop through that and wean them at that good a time. So that's picture of harvest. This is a picture of the hybrid rye in 2018. It shows what happens if it doesn't get off to a good start. It was planted in the mud in October of 2017. And that crop, as I mentioned earlier, like a lot of crops, if you get them off to a bad start, you're not going to have good expectations down the road. So, all right, we just right now are combining just right below the top. And the other advantage of direct harvesting is that the crop doesn't lodge. We cut below the seed head. That goes through the combine really smooth. The guy that did that combine has always windrowed, thinks it always has to be windrowed. Now he'll tell you the only way to do it is direct cutting, because then we go behind it with the disc vine, whack it off like that, and then get it dried and take it off for bedding crop. So at any rate, we're using two different nitrogen fixing cover crops developed by Albert Lee in cooperation with Practical Farmers of Iowa. And that's working very well, and proceed with corn the next year, but that's part of our sequence. So we changed our cropping system very much with the introduction of a winter annual, which to suppress something like giant ragweed, we actually needed this tool. Is it the total solution? No, it's not the total solution, but it's a very important part of a step that puts us in front of it, and then we apply all the other cultural practices we can, and then I kill the survivors. And boy, I mean we kill the survivors. Because if you've got giant ragweed that's going to evolve in the practices we're using, it'll become such a bad problem. I don't know what we're going to do. So I cannot afford to have the genes from this crop evolve against these strategies. And I think that's a really important thing to realize, that that crop evolves rapidly and very aggressively. So we feed this crop to both hogs and cattle. And we've completed now 3 years of trials of the Practical Farmers of Iowa looking at hybrid rye replacing half the corn and grow finished pig diets. As long as we make the energy the same with soybean oil, the pigs are have done the same. And a huge project is soon to be completed by the University of Illinois on pork carcass quality, where the rye replaces corn in the pig diet. So Elderly Seed and KWS Cereals help sponsor that research work, and what we're trying to do is diversify the diets to diversify the Iowa landscape. So we're covering our soil, we're helping control our weeds, we're feeding our livestock, and to change our cropping rotation. And the bottom line is that when a third party looked at what we're doing for soil quality, it says it came back that we are doing what we're saying we're doing by improving edge root structure, reducing